Good morning, everyone. Jason, Neil, before we start, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Fantastic. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone, regardless of where you're calling from. My name's Tom Dodds. I'm the EMEA Marketing Manager here at Tenzig Technology, and I'm happy to be sitting alongside Jason and Neil today to present As Easy as AVD. So I'm merely acting as the glamorous assistant for these two today. I will be in the background helping to see what questions you might have and anything I can help out with. But enough for me. I think we'll jump straight into welcoming the presenters today. So good morning or good afternoon, Jason, even.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Good. You're calling from Wales today, aren't you, Jason, I believe?
I am, yeah, sunny North Wales, right by the coast I am.
Very nice. and Neil, how are you doing?
I'm not doing good. I've got the COVID, but I'm soldiering on, don't worry.
Well, we appreciate you pushing past that to join today. And where are you connecting to us from?
I'm based from sunny Manchester.
Manchester.
Northern England, yes.
Good. So yeah, I'm down in Leicester. I think I'm probably the only one that hasn't got any sun today then, because it's pretty dismal here today.
Yeah.
So without further ado, Jason, I'll let you introduce yourself properly and we'll kick things off from there.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. Hope you're well, and thanks for joining us today, and special thanks to Neil for being with us. I'm Jason Hudson from Tenzig Technology, and I have over 30 years experience in the IT industry. I joined the company back in March 21 after having a 10-year working relationship with Tenzig as a retail infrastructure architect at Iceland Foods in the UK. I'm a technical solutions architect, and my role is focused on creation and improvement of Tenzig technical content, such as videos, tech support guides, and I also provide customer solutions for the Windows 10 platform. A quick background on Tenzig for those not aware: we're solely focused as a thin and zero client vendor. We understand all there is to know about graphics and audio remoting, from on-premise setups to more recent cloud-based deployments in the last 2 years, thanks to AVD and Azure. We're headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, with our EMEA office in the UK. We're a long-standing partner with Microsoft and Nerdio, having offered mutual customers both on Windows and Linux-based AVD and Windows 365 endpoints. The Tenzig and Nerdio partnership and philosophy is very complementary. Where Nerdio's aim is to simplify the deployment, pricing, management, and optimization, Tenzig's approach is that we make our endpoints fit your environment and not the other way round. Tenzig is built on excellent customer service, and this is why customers buy from Tenzig time and time again, as you'll see from our testimonials. Where we differ from competitors is that we're solely focused on our sales and technical teams are highly skilled EUC specialists through training and certification, and take sales and support to the next level. We also have a free evaluation program available to all customers, where you can pick from our wide range of endpoints and then test them within your own specific user groups, all with access to Tenzig pre and post sales support teams without any financial risks. Our current portfolio contains devices that fall into 3 categories: task worker, knowledge worker, and power worker. The 4600Q and 7700Q land in the task worker category, typically supporting office applications like media and Teams call use. The 6000Q handles everything that the task worker can do and more, and typically suits heavier multimedia use and a full Teams audio and video experience. Last but not least is the 6100 that comes under the power worker banner, with its ability to run everything the previous categories offered, with the option to support 4x4K displays running at 60 Hz. Looking at the diagram, you'll notice that all the Tenzig devices mentioned provide multi-monitor support, as indicated by the numbers in the white boxes next to the model number. Those devices all support Windows 10 IoT and the latest remote desktop client, so are perfectly matched with your AVD and Windows 365 desktops, especially when running Teams calls. The remote desktop client has undergone 2+ years enhancements with regards to features and performance updates in such key areas as hardware encoding and decoding, multiple camera improvements, GPU render path optimization for reducing latency, background blur and image background options, and also multimedia redirection. Head over to the Microsoft site, learn.microsoft.com, to keep up to date with the latest advancements in remote desktop client features. All Tenzing Windows 10 devices offer tools to simplify security and deliver a clean user experience as well, such as the UWF wizard that can create custom kiosk shells, configure the unified write filter, and restrict access to local OS functionality. If you need to manage your devices remotely, then Tenzing Manager delivers total endpoint management from auditing and reporting to software and Windows Update deployments. If your organization has a subscription to Microsoft Endpoint Manager, otherwise known as MEM or Intune, then your Tenzing Windows 10 IoT devices can also be managed by that, either solely or in harmony with the Tenzing Manager. Zero clients are our most popular product with customers and deliver a powerful and secure, easy-to-manage endpoint device for connection to your VDI desktops. NOSM is Tenzing's own customized Linux-based OS, providing a custom-made environment designed specifically for RDS AVD and Windows 365, all inside the NOSM device. PCOS and Repurpose are Tenzing's other Linux-based offerings that combine the features of NOSM, plus other common VDI DaaS clients, including Chrome and Firefox for environments with mixed usage requirements. The demo video showing later will introduce you to several ways to securely manage and optimize your Windows 10 IoT thin clients, so you can get the most out of your devices right from the word go. It'll point you in the direction of Tenzing video guides and technical documentation, so you can practice the methods and techniques at your own convenience. The guide talks about the following content: securing devices with the UWF, looking at filters and overlays, customizing your Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 devices locally and remotely, creating single app kiosk shells using the UWF wizard, Tenzing Manager, and MEM, creating a multi-app kiosk shell using Microsoft Endpoint Manager, applying Windows updates and UWF servicing mode, and deployment and installation to Tenzing devices using Tenzing Manager. Now, there's a lot of interesting content contained within this single 25-minute video that gives you more than enough information you need to get you started. Before I hand over to Neil, we'll just ask the first of our 3 poll questions. So if we can launch that first one, Tom.
Just give that a few more seconds, Jason.
Sure. So the question obviously is, I can't see the poll, unfortunately. So are you using AVD Cloud PC already? So yes, trialing proof of concept, or considering for the future, or perhaps not at all.
Thanks. I think we'll close that one down now.
Cheers, Tom. Okay, you happy with that?
Yeah, we're good for Jason to move on now.
Marvelous, thank you. Cheers. Right, okay. So before that video presentation and demonstration from us later on, we'll just hand you over to Neil now. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you very much. So do you want to hand over a presenter to myself and I'll share my screen?
I will do so, sir. There you go. Should be all yours.
Amazing. Thank you. So let me just select the screen to show. Screen. Yep. Okay. So let me just bring this presentation across. Okay. A few. Let's show from the beginning. Okay. So you should be seeing my screen now?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. So, my name is Neil McLoughlin. I'm the UK Field CTO for Nerdio. I've been in the sort of doing VDI/UC for well over kind of 15 years, predominantly from a Citrix background. Moved over to Azure Virtual Desktop when it's released. When I kind of saw how powerful and what a good feature it could have. I work for a company called Nerdio. So with Nerdio, we kind of manage Azure Virtual Desktop essentially. So we don't replace Azure Virtual Desktop, we sit on top of Azure Virtual Desktop. We've been working very closely with Microsoft since the beginning of Azure Virtual Desktop. Microsoft actually approached us before they made the service live. So we were there like well before the pilot stages, and we released the same time that Azure Virtual Desktop released essentially. And fully enough, we actually released in March 2020. And we all know what happened in March 2020. So it was, you could say, unfortunate timing, but for us as a business, it was good because obviously we saw a lot of growth within Azure Virtual Desktop. And to be honest with you, that growth has not slowed down at all. We still continue to do many deployments. I mean, I personally do about about 5 deployments every week in sort of large enterprise environments, and we've now got over like 5,000 customers that we deployed Nerdio to. Okay, so what platforms do we support? Well, we support multiple platforms essentially. So we don't just support Azure Virtual Desktop. We support Windows 365, we support Azure HCI, and more recently we started to sort of integrate more with Intune as well. And our goals go across 3 pillars essentially. So number 1 is to accelerate deployments. So deploying Azure Virtual Desktop can be quite difficult at scale, even if you've not done it before, and using all the automation that we have in place, we make it very easy for you to sort of deploy it. I set myself a challenge when I started the company to do a whole deployment while I was doing the user group presentation in less than 60 minutes, and I managed to, in the space of under 60 minutes, create an image, deploy a host pool, and connect to that image. Okay, so it's very quick and easy to do using Nerdio in a very simple GUI interface, as we'll come and see shortly. The second pillar is costs. Okay, so again, deploying Azure Virtual Desktop into Azure can be expensive if it's not optimized properly. So optimization really is the key to anything that you do within Azure, because Azure is a consumption-based model. Okay, so anything you're paying for, you're using. So we need to make sure that we're only actually paying for those resources when we're using those resources. If we're logged onto a host, if we're got a host running where no one's logged onto it, then that's a wasted costs, okay, because you're not using when you pay for it. So the other one is reduce complexity. And so again, deploying Azure Virtual Desktop can be very complex, and we managed to reduce that complexity by the simple GUI interface that we give you, which I'll go through shortly. Okay, so what do we do? Right, so as I mentioned, we sit on top of Azure Virtual Desktop. We extend the native AVD and Windows 365 capabilities. So we don't replace those, we sit on top of those. And that benefits in so many ways because Microsoft are putting so much investment into Azure Virtual Desktop and also Windows 365. And that means we natively inherit those investments, okay? So, I mean, I watch the releases, and probably about every quarter, Microsoft release a lot of new features into Azure Virtual Desktop, and a lot of them are pretty big features. Like most recently, we had like media redirection, which is a huge feature. We had like single sign-on for Azure Active Directory. So the service continues to get better, and also we release products into Nerdio as well, which enhances that experience as well. So these are the multiple pillars that we work across. So as I mentioned, just then cost and performance optimization, which we'll go through when we go through the demonstration shortly. Image management. Image management is huge, especially when you're not used to Azure Virtual Desktop. It can be complicated if you've never done it before, if you come from like a Citrix environment, because you have to do snapshotting and sys prepping and image versioning within the Azure Compute Gallery. Nerdio takes care of all that for you, which is what we'll show when we go through the presentation as well. Application management, so we can deploy applications onto hosts using Nerdio, and we can also do sort of MSX app attach management as well. Active, host pool disaster recovery for variability disaster recovery. We do orchestration for REST APIs. So if you use tools like ServiceNow, for example, we can integrate with those, and we can fully automate the Nerdio console using REST APIs. So, for example, if you don't want to use the console, you just want to use APIs, you can absolutely do that. Monitoring reporting, we have a lot of reporting capability within Nerdio, so we can do email notifications, we can do logging within the console, we can filter on only show me things which you failed, for example, but again, I'll show you that shortly. And then we do Windows 365 as well, so we have something called Windows PC Cloud Optimization for the license. And what this lets you do, this enables you to essentially share your licenses amongst users. So we can sort of automatically take a license off a user if they've not logged onto their cloud PC within 30 days, for example, or we can park a license, which enables somebody else to use like a bigger license. So there's a lot of stuff we do around that, and a lot more coming with the in-tune capability that we're going to announce shortly. And then security compliance as well. So Nerdio is deployed inside the customer's tenant. Okay, so that normally ticks all the security compliance boxes, because it means that the customer can apply their own security policies to the Nerdio deployment. I'll go through shortly what resources Nerdio deploys, and then you'll be able to see from there. Okay, as I mentioned, it's a standalone Azure application which sits inside your own tenant. Okay, and it's also deployed and built with Azure Marketplace as well, and that really helps from a sort of a billing perspective, because normally customers have to go through a very long procurement process when they're looking at a product. You don't have to do that with Nerdio. You deploy it through the Azure Marketplace, and you also bill it through the Azure Marketplace as well. Okay, so it's just another line item within your Azure bill. And the good thing is as well, the license, the license usage goes up and down depending on how you use it, right? We don't tie you in for a year, we don't tie you in for 3 years. It's just on a 30-day cycle. So at the end of each 30 days, you'll just get a bill from Azure, from Nerdio, and that'll be the amount of licensing that you consume that month. So very, very easy and simple to billing, and you can also cancel at any time as well. Okay, so how do we reduce the cost of sort of Azure Virtual Desktop? So this is a quick comparison chart which we produce, which basically shows what the general cost is of like a single virtual machine or within an Azure Virtual Desktop environment. So what we found was these are how the cost is split up. Okay, so you got the compute, so this is your VM. Okay, so you've got like a D16 SVM, for example, and this is where 70% of your cost will come from, and this is where you're going to get most of your cost savings from. The next is got your OS disks. Okay, so this is like your 120 gig disk, which you have attached to each VM, and then we have our FS Logic profile, and this is generally the Azure file storage account. Then we have our networking, which is our ingress and egress network. We can't really do much about that. And then we've got other costs, which is generally stuff like the local analytics databases and that kind of thing. So how can Nerdio actually save money? So we'll go into a bit of detail when we look at the console in a second, but this is how we do it. Okay, so we report, obviously, we can do cost savings up to 83%. In reality, it's more like between 60 and 70. Obviously, this is a very, very highly optimized environment. So first one, as we talked about, is the power management. So what we're doing here is we're turning VMs off when they're not needed. Okay, so we're looking at different metrics on the VM. We're looking at the RAM usage. We're looking at the CPU usage. We're looking at to see if anyone's actually on the host or not. And if they're not, then we'll just shut the host down into a deallocated state, so we're not paying for it. We have a very, very, very advanced auto-scaling mechanism, which I'll go through on the next slide. But it really enables you to fine-tune the power management to your own environment to get the best cost savings you possibly can do. The second one is just inside provisioning. So Nerdio will actually create new hosts for you if you don't have enough capacity within the host pool. So if, for example, you employ some extra staff and nobody tells you, you get an extra 500 people logging on the next day, Nerdio will detect that and it'll say, right, okay, I need to provision more hosts. But it also means we can just like, by default, create like a low number of hosts, and then throughout the day, Nerdio will create hosts, and then towards the end of the day, it will delete those hosts as well. Okay. The other one is reserved instances. Now, what we actually have a calculator built into Nerdio, which we call a reserved instance calculator, analytics calculator, and that will actually analyze your workload over the past 30 days or a week or whatever metrics you give it, and it will then recommend certain reserved instances, because we find the best cost savings you get when you do a mix of both. So you may have like 1 or 2 VMs on a reserved instance that are running 24/7, or you may have like 3 or 4 and the rest on pay as you go. Okay, so Some people assume that reserved instances is always cheaper. That is definitely not the case. It depends how many hours a day that VM is running. Okay, so we'll give you the information, we'll analyze it, and then we'll give you the best number of instances to reserve. The other one is OS Disk Autoscale. So Nerdio is actually going to switch off when Nerdio powers off a VM. It actually switches the disk from like a premium SSD onto a standard HDD. Okay, so that can save you quite a bit of money if you've got a large number of hosts, because the only thing which you're constantly paying for within Azure is your storage. Okay. So what we enable you to do is when you don't have the VM running, you want to make sure you pay for the cheapest storage as possible. So that's what we do when that VM powers off. Now we shrink down to 64 gigs. So if there's not much on your image and you can get away with having a 64 gig image, what we can do with Nerdio is we can shrink that disk down to 64 gigs. And what that means is that because we shrunk the image down to 64 gig, apologies, because we shrink the image down to 64 gigs, it means that we can then deploy 64 gig disks for the hosts. Okay, and obviously a 64 gig disk costs half of what 120 gig disk costs. Okay, so half the cost. Excuse me. Then the FHRT shrink disk basically reduces the FHRT profile storage by deleting the white space. Okay, and this is the auto-scale features which I told you about. So natively, you can do auto-scaling within Azure Virtual Desktop, but it's quite limited in feature set. So what we allow you to do by Nerdio is we give you lots more advanced features, which I'll go through as part when I do the demo. Well, apologies. Okay, so this is the what Nerdio looks like. So as I mentioned, it's deployed from the Azure Marketplace, and we deploy a set of key services. So we deploy a app service, Key Vault, Azure SQL database, automation accounts, log analytics, and app insights, and then they communicate by Graph API into your Azure AD tenants. Okay, so we just set some permissions, and then this is how Nerdio interacts with your existing or new Azure Virtual Desktop environment. Okay, so that's it from the slides. I'm just going to go and spend about 10 minutes now just walking you through the console and just showing you what Nerdio is. Okay, so this is the Nerdio console. So as you can see, it's a very easy web-based GUI. Okay, so you don't have to log into the Azure portal, and it also means that we can do like RBAC. Okay, so we can give this to like your level 1, level 2, and level 3 help desk people, and then they can like really easily manage the environment using this console. So I'm going to just quickly show you two things. So when I go on customer calls, the most problems that I normally have that customers having is image management, and then also auto scaling and cost control. So we'll just show you those two things, and I'll quickly show you some other stuff as well. So if I wanted to create a new desktop image, how do we do that? So again, outside of Nerdio, it's a very manual process, but what I can do within here, I can just go to here and I can say, right, I want to create like my new master image. I want to create my Azure image. So we're going to go to the connect to the Azure gallery via APIs, and then we'll pull down the very latest versions. So I can put like latest Windows 11 image. And we can do the AD join because we're storing domain join credentials within the Key Vault database. And then we can also create like the Azure compute gallery. So I can select an existing one if you need to. And then we can also install software. So I can go in here and can say, right, I want to install Teams. I want to install like Office. I want to install VS Code. I click OK, and then off it goes, and then that will create that image. It will install that software. It will do the whole sys prepping. It will copy it to the Azure Compute Gallery, so it's ready to go for you to deploy straight away. So obviously, that just took me 2 or 3 minutes to do the whole thing. It'll take about probably 20 minutes in total, and then you're ready to go with the image ready to go out and create host pools for your users. Okay, so very, very, very easy to do. So once you've created the image, obviously we need to then go and create host pools. So again, what we can do with Nerdio, I can add a dynamic host pool. So as you can see, we're not actually creating any hosts because we're going to let the auto scaling create a host for us. So we just need to give it the name, the directory. We can manage the FHLT profiles as well using Nerdio. We give it the desktop image template that we just created there. Then we create the host pool, then we can quickly assign user to that host pool as well. But then what I could do, I can go to autoscale, configure that, enable that to just flick that to on, and then we just give it some basic details around what host name we want to call it, what network we want it to be, what image we want it to use, and then we just say, right, I want X amount of hosts. So I can go in there and say, right, I want 100 hosts. And then what Nerdio will do, it will then basically create those hosts but not power them on. And then we're just going to give it some trigger points, which is going to go for the auto scaling. So we can auto scale based on like CPU usage, we can auto scale based on RAM usage, we can auto scale based on average active sessions, or we can auto scale based on available sessions, which is n+1, and then we can auto scale based on user driven, which is like, so you start VM on Connect to log on to the VM, and then when the last user logs off, the host will obviously shut down. And then we can do stuff like set scaling restrictions. So we can only scale in after the user's gone home, for example. So it can only scale in like after 6 p.m. till, I don't know, 6 a.m. And then we can set up aggressive that's going to be. So that's only going to power off hosts with no one connected to them, and they're disconnected users only. Or I'm going to go off no matter what. But we can also do pre-staging. So if we want, I don't know, oh, there's 100 hosts, I want 10 to be available on like Monday to Friday, and we can just select that within here as well. So we can really fine tune the auto scaling to how your business works essentially. So that means you get the best cost saving strategies that you can from power management. And there's a couple of other things to do, like we do MSX app attach, we can do scripted actions, which is sure to install the software. We do monitoring, we can manage the storage, so we can go and look at the Azure files. We can do auto scaling on the Azure files, so you can see how much free space you've got left. As I mentioned, we do RBAC, so you can easily assign user RBAC roles to your like level 1 help desk, so you can then do session management, notification and logging, so we can send the email alerts. And then we can do logs. So Nerdio logs absolutely everything. Okay, so you can go in here and you can see, right, okay, who did what. So I can go in here and see, okay, this person did something. It's going to tell me what their IP address was. It's going to tell me sort of what the user was. So there's a lot of stuff you can configure, and the basic goal of Nerdio, what we do, is just to make the management of Azure Virtual Desktop a lot easier and simpler to do. Okay, that's all I've got to show for you today, so I'll hand you back to Jason. Let me hand you back to Jason.
Take it.
Yep, there you go.
I think I've stolen it off.
Okay.
Right, thanks very much, Neil. That was really interesting. Before we start the next video, which is ours, we'd just like to ask you the next poll question, if we can roll that up, please, Tom.
Yeah, I'm even going to treat you by turning my audio on this time, Jason, so I can read the question.
Marvellous, okay.
So what type of endpoint are you planning to use? There are 5 options for you to choose there, and we'll leave that up for a little while. If anyone has any questions they want to ask for Nerdio or Tenzig during this, you can put them in the question panel on the right-hand side. Leave that running for a few seconds. We also have some handouts available, which you'll see in the handouts section on the right-hand side of your screen as well, if you'd like to access any of those. So I'll close that one down, Jason. Hand back to you.
Marvellous. Thank you very much, Tom. Cheers. Super. Can you see that? My next screen?
Yep.
Yeah, super. Okay, like we said earlier, this video will introduce you to several ways to securely manage and optimize your Windows 10 IoT thin clients. So you can basically get the most out of your devices straight out of the box. It'll point you in the direction of Tenzig video guides and technical documentation too, so you can practice the methods and techniques at your own convenience. So I hope you enjoy it. It's about 23 minutes long, and following that, what we'll do is we'll just have a quick wrap up and our final poll question, and we'll have a Q&A section at the end.
You ready for that now, Jason?
Yeah, sure. Let's take a look at some of the areas that Tenzig can help you with, especially when it comes to planning, managing and maintaining your Windows 10 endpoints, either in the workplace or home office environment. The UWF, as we'll refer to it, is part of Windows 10 and later versions of the OS and was designed to provide a clean experience for thin clients and workspaces that have frequent guests like schools, libraries or hotel lobby computers. Guests can work, change settings and install software. After the device reboots, the next guest receives a clean experience. The UWF has a concept called exclusions that are either file or folder locations or registry entries on the disk and allow you to exclude them from the UWF filtering process. This means that anything you specify as an exclusion will bypass the UWF completely. So if applications or the OS want to, they have complete freedom to write content to that location. Your organization might have a requirement that Windows updates, antivirus applications, and their virus definition data, also any new application or feature updates locations, are all excluded so they can freely write to the disk. The overlay is where the UWF stores its data and can either be in RAM or on the physical disk on the Windows 10 IoT client. This overlay is written to during the uptime of the thin client and then cleared during a reboot. If you choose to store the virtual overlay in RAM, then it has the benefit of being able to reduce the wear on write-sensitive media like solid-state drives. However, there are exceptions to this rule, as you may still need to write data to the physical drive, like we mentioned in the exclusions previously. With both overlays, there are pros and cons. If, however, your main concern is preventing wear and tear on all of your solid-state drives, then you'll want to use a RAM overlay. Tenzig can advise on how to best preserve your RAM overlay uptime during logged-on sessions by excluding all necessary writes from the UWF and pushing them straight to disk. Examples would be VDI client logs, Windows Defender application and definitions, and Windows event logs, but to name a few. It's worth noting that as part of its standard Windows 10 IoT thin client build, Tenzig have their own GUI interface called the UWF Wizard, which enables you to configure your UWF overlay settings and exclusion list too. This wizard enables you to locally configure the UWF by using the GUI interface, but offers a whole lot more. It allows you to set up custom shells, gives you the ability to enable or disable certain screen experiences such as welcome screen animations, lock and boot options, and even fine-tune welcome screen content. It also gives you greater control over how your users can interact with the OS and any specific application-related keyboard shortcuts. Tenzig recently produced a 60-page guide dedicated to setting up, managing, and monitoring the UWF. In that document, you'll discover all you need to know about Microsoft's Unified Write Filter running on a Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LCSC 2021 device. It'll be looking at overlays, what they are, where they reside, and outline the pros and cons of using them. And also look at what happens when they become exhausted and how you can mitigate any potential operational issues. It talks about the different types of filter exclusions and how useful and also how critical they are for certain applications and OS functionality. The document also runs through a proof of concept and best practices for setting up and managing your UWF configuration in the live environment. It guides you in setting up the overlay, building in certain exclusions, and recommends configurations for your local applications. In that proof of concept section, Tenzig will explain and give examples of how you can monitor and maintain the UWF using the GUI, command line, and scripting options. This will focus on using tools such as Windows Event Viewer, command line scripting via PowerShell, and also some messaging tricks via triggers to Windows Task Scheduler. To gain access to this guide, just contact your local Tenzig technical support team and ask for a copy of Discovering Microsoft's Unified Write Filter. on Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 thin clients. Traditionally, the standard Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC build came with a set of popular VDI or DaaS clients pre-installed. It was recognised that a better approach would be to give customers the ability to configure the units to their own specific business needs. This would mean if a customer only had requirements for its thin clients to access a specific VDI or DaaS environment, let's say for example Azure Virtual Desktops or Windows 365 Cloud PCs, then they would simply install the latest remote desktop client on their Tenzig devices. This would mean that in future, they would only need to be concerned with keeping that VDI or DaaS client up to date. Again, Tenzig have produced a very comprehensive guide on how to customize your Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 devices. We show you how to install the applications that you specifically need to meet your own organization's infrastructure requirements. The guide walks you through installing 3 popular client applications and includes Microsoft's remote desktop client among them. It points you in the direction of sites to visit so you can download the latest client apps just mentioned and shows you how to install them locally on your thin client devices. To round off, the guide takes you on a tour of Tenzig Manager's built-in package manager and shows you how to custom build your favorite VDI DaaS clients into an installer package, ready for deployment to your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 devices. During the package creation and deployment section, we also give you examples of deployment options for each package and explain the use case for each option, so you have several methods at your disposal, especially if there's one that benefits you specifically. To grab your own copy of this guide, head over to www.tenzig.com/welcome and click on the link to the PDF document for the welcome booklet. Inside the welcome booklet, scroll down to the Thin Clients for Windows 10 IoT section and click the link to Installing VDI DaaS Applications, where you'll be able to download your own copy of this guide we just mentioned inside there. Creating a custom shell gives you the ability to launch your user's desktop to run a single application at login, so that your end users only get access to what they need and nothing more. Your organization might have a specific business requirement for your end users to only run a remote desktop client on startup so they can gain access to their AVD VDI or Windows 365 Cloud PCs. Tenzig gives you the ability to create this environment for your endpoints in several different ways. One method is to use the Tenzig UWF wizard directly on the local machine itself. Another option is to use Tenzig Manager to build a custom package using the package manager and then deploy this to as many endpoints as you wish. Tenzig developed a couple of Windows applications that can be deployed via Tenzig Manager to either set your Windows 10 IoT thin clients in or out of this secure single app kiosk mode. If you have a subscription to Microsoft Endpoint Manager, MEM, formerly known as Intune, inside your Azure Active Directory, then you can create a kiosk-based configuration profile to configure your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT devices out in the field, just like Tenzig Manager's Package Manager can do. You can either create a single or multi-app kiosk using this method. You can use one of the built-in kiosk templates that will allow you to easily switch certain Windows 10 IoT features on or off when applying the profile too. A kiosk configuration profile is really straightforward to set up and can be up and running on your client devices in minutes. You might want to build a kiosk shell for your Windows 10 IoT devices that only has one application on the desktop and that it launches automatically when the device logs in. You might also want this device to hide its taskbar, as there's nothing else to switch to anyway. It just makes things a little bit neater when certain features are not needed. Before we move on, we'll just take you through some screens to show you how easy it is to set up a single or multi-app kiosk configuration profile inside Endpoint Manager. and then show you what our Tenzing Windows 10 thin client looks like following deployment. We need to obtain some application-specific information from our Tenzing Windows thin clients first. We're going to create two applications on our Windows multi-app kiosk thin client desktop by adding the remote desktop client and then the Microsoft Edge browser, both as Win32 apps. We need to find the location of the Edge browser and remote desktop client applications executables, and also something known as the AU MID, or Application User Model ID. You can find the AU MID in several different ways on your Windows clients, using File Explorer to navigate to the Installed Apps folder, getting them from the registry, or using PowerShell to extract them. We'll show you how to do this by using PowerShell, as we'll then be able to cut and paste the exe locations and AU MID details directly into the MEM configuration profile. To open PowerShell, right-click the Start menu and click Run. Inside the dialog box, type in PowerShell and press Enter or OK. Once inside the PowerShell console, type in Get-Start Apps and press Enter. And you'll see a complete list of installed applications and the respective AU MIDs under the heading of App ID. We can see the app name Remote Desktop just down the list and its associated app ID next to it, called Microsoft.RemoteDesktop.wpf. We can also see the Edge browser app ID named MS Edge just a bit further down. I already know the executable locations for these apps, so now we're ready to create the kiosk configuration profile in Endpoint Manager. Once inside the Endpoint Manager portal, we need to click on Devices and then scroll down and click Configuration Profiles. We need to click Create Profile and then click the Platform drop-down in the right-hand menu and select Windows 10 and Later from the list. From the profile type below, we need to select Templates, highlight Kiosk further down the list, and click Create. Give the profile a meaningful name and description, and then click Next. Now, we need to select a kiosk mode that we want our Tenzing endpoints to operate in. We have the options Single App Full Screen Kiosk or Multi-App Kiosk. If you're sure that you'll only ever want to use a single application for your users to access, then select Single App. However, if initially you think you need one app but might want to introduce others in future, then select Multi-App Kiosk. This method gives you the ability to run a single app that auto-launches and behaves in a similar way to the single app option, but then gives you the flexibility to add additional apps in future, should your organization decide this is now a business requirement. We're going to select Multi-App Kiosk for the purpose of this demonstration. If you set Target Devices running Windows 10/11 in S mode to Yes, then you won't be able to include any Win32 apps in here to run inside your kiosk. If you set this to No, then you will be able to build in Win32 apps in the profile. But if your client endpoints are running Windows 10 or 11 in S mode, then these configs won't be applied to those devices. For this demo, we're going to say no, as our clients aren't running S mode and we want to set up our kiosk with Win32 apps, so we can show you how it works by adding in the AU MID and exe locations also. In the user logon type box, you have several options available, including auto logon, local user accounts, Azure AD user or group, and HoloLens visitor. We're going to select auto logon, as we want our device to automatically sign in every time our device reboots and then launch the kiosk for us. Setting this option has the added benefit of automatically creating the user named kiosk on your devices once the configuration profile has been applied to your endpoints. This is really useful if your clients usually only have local user accounts that they sign in with, and you want to keep this kiosk user and configuration separate from those accounts.
from a maintenance perspective. First, we're going to create the remote desktop client as a Win32 app. So we click Add Win32 app, and in the right-hand window, type in the name of the app. This can be anything you want, but it makes sense to call it something meaningful to the app, so not to confuse your end users. Remote desktop client is a good choice. Next, we're going to copy and paste in the location of the application executable, including the physical.exe name itself. In this example, ours is going to be the C program files remote desktop msrdcw.exe. Now, the last piece of information required is the AU mid that was displayed next to the remote desktop app name when we ran the PowerShell function get start apps. This AU mid was called microsoft.remotedesktop.wpf. So we'll paste that in here also and then click OK to save it. We want this remote desktop client app to launch automatically as soon as the kiosk user auto logs in. So we need to tick the auto launch box next to the app. Next, we're going to add the Edge browser as a Win32 app. So again, we click Add Win32 app and fill in the relevant details, name, path, and the AU mid, which in this case is MS Edge. Now we have our two apps that will appear on the Tenzig Windows 10 Thin Client desktop once the configuration profile is applied to the device. We're going to do one last thing before we finalize the profile, and that's to make the Windows taskbar visible to our users, so they can easily switch between the two apps if they're running at the same time. We need to click Show on Windows taskbar option below and then click Next at the bottom of the screen. We click Next again on Scope Tags and then assign it to our group that our Tenzig device already belongs to in the AAD. We click Add Groups under the Included Groups section and then choose the group Tenzig Devices by typing it into the right-hand search box, highlighting it, and then clicking Select below. We click Next, Next, and then Create, once we're happy with the contents of the config profile. Once saved, you'll see it appear in the list. Now let's see what happens to our Tenzig Windows 10 IoT device once the profile has been applied and the client has restarted. Notice that the device is logging in automatically as user kiosk. That's created locally on the Thin client as part of the MEM configuration profile during the deployment and setup process. Once logged in, notice that the remote desktop client is launched automatically. Remember, we switched this on during the configuration profile setup before we deployed it to the Tenzig Thin client. If we minimize the remote desktop client, you can see our two kiosk app icons on the desktop. If we click on the Microsoft Edge icon, this launches alongside our remote desktop client. And because we specified that we wanted our taskbar visible, we can switch easily between both applications, but can also use Alt and Tab to do this in the traditional manner. Remember, if you wanted to add or remove your Thin client apps at a later date, then it's just a simple case of modifying your MEM config profile to do just that. Creating multi-app kiosks can be tailored to suit your own needs, and even modified to add more apps or just even run the multi-app kiosk with a single app, just by removing those apps you don't need and then hiding the taskbar. If you watch this clip, then you have all you need to do this in your own endpoint manager environment. But if you'd like a personal copy of the documentation used for this video, Tenzig already have it for you. Just contact your local tech support team for more details. Security and stability of your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT Thin clients is extremely important to you and your organization. And Windows updates more than likely feature high on the list of every IT infrastructure specialist. Tenzig have a linked video entitled Securing Windows 10 IoT Thin Clients via Shell Launcher, Unified Write Filter, and Windows Updates that covers a multitude of useful techniques for keeping your devices up to date. Remember we talked about managing the UWF, or Unified Write Filter, earlier in this presentation? Well, in that linked video, we show you how to set up the UWF to be able to manage bulk updates automatically, using UWF servicing mode, and also how to apply individual ones using methods to unlock the local drives for update, and then locking them again following successful maintenance. That video also demonstrates an end-to-end servicing mode update and also explains the UWF states as it goes through them, and what's actually happening before, during, and after the update process. It also talks about best practice scenarios for applying updates to your Tenzig Windows 10 devices, like we mentioned, either in batch mode, where all outstanding updates are applied in one go, or if you want to deploy and install just a single update. To find this and other how-to videos, just head over to the Tenzig YouTube channel, where you'll also find many more useful guides at your disposal. Or visit the video gallery at www.tenzig.com. Throughout this video presentation of useful guides, we mentioned Tenzig Manager's Package Manager, especially in the areas of Windows 10 IoT LTSC 2021 image customization, creating Tenzig custom shells, and applying your Windows updates. The video and documentation links give you hands-on step-by-step instructions on how to build your own custom Windows installer packages, and teach you some handy tips and tricks along the way. For example, you can deploy either single or multi-file installation packages. You can deploy and execute them from your remote shared location, or deploy and install them from the physical Tenzig endpoint. You can also use Tenzig Manager's built-in task scheduler to execute your saved packages at a predefined date in time. This is an extremely cool feature if you want to pre-deploy all your installer content to all of your thin client estate, ready to install on a go-live date. Then, on that specific install date, Tenzig Manager's task scheduler would deploy a small starter command that would in turn launch the larger previous week's pre-deployed installer package. The task schedule has many useful actions available. It also gives you the ability to deploy to individual or groups of Tenzig devices. Remember, all the apps, guides, techniques and best practices mentioned in this video are all there for further inspection and application in your own business environment. We've just scratched the surface to give you some ideas and food for thought for your own individual use cases. So please watch the full-length versions of the video content on the Tenzig YouTube and website channels, and reach out to the Tenzig team for documentation and any additional help needed to implement any of the solutions in your own organization. From all of us here at Tenzig, thanks for watching and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Oh, am I back?
You're back.
Super. Okay, so I hope that gave you an insight on how you can get the most out of your Tenzig Windows 10 IoT Thin Client straight out of the box. So before we go to Q&A, we'll just ask our third and final poll question, if that's okay, Tom.
Yep, fantastic. So it should be on the screen now. Would you like to receive a free demo from Tenzig or Nerdio?
So yes from Tenzig, yes from Nerdio, yes from Tenzig and Nerdio, maybe in the future, or no thank you. We'll just give you a few moments to answer that.
Give me a few more seconds, Jason, and I'll close it down for you.
Thank you.
There you go, all yours.
Marvelous, thanks very much. Okay, I hope that gave you an understanding of how you can securely manage and optimize your Tenzig Windows 10 devices using the UWF, Windows Updates, and Tenzig Manager's Package Manager, and also creating a secure kiosk environment using MEM, Tenzig Manager, and the UWF Wizard. I just want to say thanks very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And once again, thanks to Neil and Nerdio for joining us, and Tenzig's very own Tom Dodds for organising and hosting the event. Just to let you know, any questions we can't answer today will be followed up with a more comprehensive response over the coming days. I've already answered a few as we've been going through and the video was playing, but if we've got any additional ones, just fire them across to us now. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, but like I say, any that have been asked, I've been able to answer on the fly, and any that come in during now and then that we can't, like I say, we'll give you a more detailed response over the next week or so.
Yeah, whilst you see if there's any questions coming, Jason, thanks from me, for yourself, for your effort in putting this together, and also to Neil for struggling through, feeling under the weather to do this with us today.
No problem.
Yeah. So
Well
hopefully
done.
you can go and get yourself wrapped up in bed tonight, Neil, to get over it. And
Yeah, that's definitely the plan.
yeah, good. So do we have any questions coming, Jason?
There's one for Neil here. It's saying on the Nerdio demo, when you add the apps to the master image, where did they come from?
So we use something called scripted actions. So they can come from multiple sources. So you can install them from SCCM. Primarily, we like to use something called Chocolatey. It's a very popular option, but we also support stuff like Winget. So a popular option, for example, is a customer to place the MSI files on the network file share, and then use the PowerShell scripted actions to install the applications into the image. But we're about to announce something very special at our NerdioCon conference in a few weeks' time, and that'll be a completely different way of deploying applications onto the host, so and images as well. So listen out for that.
Good.
Okay, so William Anderson's asked, will the webinar be available online? You missed it because of a phone call. I think it's available, isn't it, Tom, following the session?
Yeah, it's been recorded, so we'll share that with everyone, and we'll share contact details for Tenzig and Nerdio in that as well.
Super. Okay, don't seem to have any more coming through. If we do in the meantime.
Where do people go if they want a demo of Nerdio, Neil? Is it the website or?
They can contact me. I should have put a slide up with my details on, shouldn't I? So you can contact me at nmclaughlin@nerdio.com. Sorry, getnerdio.com. But also you can go through the website and there's a demo request form on there. Submit that, and then someone there will be able to contact you and arrange that demo. Or do a search for me. So if you search my name and Nerdio on Google, I'm sure my contact details will pop up, and I've got stuff on LinkedIn, Twitter, and everywhere as well. So.
Thank you very much. I think there's another question popped up, Jason. I don't know if that's one you've answered online or if you.
David's asked any plans to all Tenzig UFI Wizard. I think that's UWF Wizard, to lock down the AD user account instead of local account. I'll take that one away, David. I'll probably need to do a little bit more digging into that. If you wanted to actually add any additional information there as well, anything specific, that might be specific to your environment, just let me know, and we can take it offline.
Yeah, we can reach out to David for that one, can't we?
Yeah, I can do that personally, David. If you want, just send it through in the chat in a minute, and I'll respond to it personally.
Fantastic. And I think that brings us to the end of the questions. So yeah, thank you for everyone for attending today. And again, thank you to Jason and Neil. Yeah, I will be in touch shortly with a recording and details of where to get free demos from, etc. But other than that, I think we're over and out.
Marvelous. Bang on time.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.